Okay. So indicators. Their purpose is to change the meaning of the following Braille characters or to change an aspect of the following text. And this can be either like capital signs, special typeface like italics or bold or underline or script, or it can also change to numeric mode, and we have numbers. But we're going to talk, let's go ahead and do this from, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and look at the capital indicators. So 1.6 in front of a letter is a capital letter indicator. 2.6s would capitalize the entire word. And now the new thing we had in UEB was the capital phrase indicator, which was 3.6s in front of a phrase. But at the end of that, and it has to be at least 3 or more words to be a phrase. And that, what was better about that is the old way of doing it was to put 2.6s in front of every single word in a passage that was capitalized, which it just went on forever in some cases. So this way, using just one symbol and then using a terminator at the end of it is very convenient. And then, of course, the numeric indicator. And those are fairly easy. The only thing I find that people forget is it's 3 words or more with the capital phrase indicator. So there we go again, capitals and the terminator. And in practice, this is how it looked. Here we have just the first letter of New York capitalized. And it's the same thing when words are kind of like joined together, De Leon. So the capital D, the capital L, again, just one symbol. New York is not a capital phrase, it's 2 words. So we use the double capital or the word indicator there. Same thing with common, like YMCA, YWCA, those type things, we would use the double capital indicator. McDonald, notice how we have 1 capital in front of Mac for the M, and then 2 as the part of the word Donald is entirely capitalized. So you can have those in the middle of a word also. So here's an example of a capital phrase indicator in terminator. Notice dogs, cats, horses, welcome, and the terminator follows. And then notice on turn to page 25, numbers are not capitalized, so the terminator is at after page. Does that all make sense to everybody? Okay. Then we have when only part of a word is capitalized, it like a compound word. Notice we can use the terminator in the middle to show that the capitalization is stopped. The number sign in the next one, toys for kids, the number sign terminates the capital word indicator. So we have to repeat that after the number 4.
But then you don't terminate it?
No, because it's not a phrase. It's
I see.
It's just 2 words. Now, this is the one that always trips people up. In this one, I know you'll see something like this in your class, Chris. Fire sale. When we would not use the terminator after the letter S, because that would make the word very difficult to read or pronounce. So notice what they do is they've capitalized the S so that the person knows this is where it ends. And it's the same thing with JP Morgan. That would also make that very difficult to read and to understand. And so we just used a single capital in front of the last letter.
So you could use a single cap as a terminator, but you wouldn't use a single capital at the end. You would use the terminator at the end.
Right, right.
What's the protocol for like using a terminator in the middle of a word or using the cap, the last letter cap.
Okay, if it was fire was, and then the first letter of sail was not capitalized, we would use the terminator after fire. But SALE would not be capitalized, so that
I
way it
see.
doesn't really like a compound word, it's not
Yeah.
overlapping a compound word. It would, otherwise it would like fires ale.
Yeah, yeah,
So if we're talking about an ale that was maybe named,
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, and I think that's the point they were trying to make with this, is try to think about readability and what makes sense.
Cool.
But you could use a terminator symbol within a word, possibly, or is that just not allowed?
It would really depend. About the only place, and I would need to look this up, but I'm wondering about sometimes when words are broken up and you're using diacritics and they use the capital for like emphasizing the syllable.
Like a diacritic that needs to be capital to like emphasize the
Yeah,
pronunciation?
instead of them using, say, sometimes in glossaries, sometimes instead of using an accent mark, that maybe the level of the reader isn't there to understanding that, so they would use full caps to emphasize a syllable.
Or like a pronunciation key or something like
Yes,
that?
I'm suspecting that would be okay. But again, the word would be still readable because it would be divided up in the way it's pronounced. And typically in those type, when you do a pronunciation key, they're usually uncontracted.
Okay.
So, but I will have to look that up to make sure. So we've covered punctuation so far, quite a bit of it actually. Periods or decimal, it's the same symbol. Question mark, exclamation, commas, semicolon, and colons.
I remember the difference between the exclamation point and the question mark, because the exclamation point is like a drop F, and like our favorite 4-letter word that
I never thought of that before.
Okay, there we go. We all got it wavered. Now never forget the exclamation point.
Wow.
So, and here's just some examples, and I think we've covered a lot of these. And notice particularly the period being used in web addresses and not the old. In the old days, it was the .46, which was very confusing because that also looked like capital or italics. So commas can be used, like in the fourth one up there, 1057.64. Commas are used in words, and the numeric indicator doesn't have to be repeated after that.
I have an embarrassing question.
Yes.
I get confused by the dot numbers. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
It's the alphabet. The second way you've done it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then think about, have you ever seen a swing cell?
I don't think so.
So it's a Braille cell. We have a few of them. I'll bring one in the library, and then it like this. And this is how you start to teach a student to use the keys on the Braille writer. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And apostrophe and commas, they can be used, comma again, used with numbers. And also apostrophes. Notice, Gesundheit. Notice on the very last one, Sam's favorite music is from the 50s. Notice that apostrophe is used in front of the numeric indicator and not behind it.
Oh my God.
So many rules.
Hyphen dashes, dollar sign, cent sign, and at sign. And we haven't seen all of those yet, and I'm not sure we have any in our literature right now. But again, notice the construction. And if you notice that ampersand that Patrick pointed out at the beginning, notice there was the .4 in front of the symbol in front of it. And that kind of gives you a clue when you see that .4 in front of a symbol that there's, the next one is, this probably is a symbol rather than a letter. Again, and this one too is so important. Hyphen is used to connect components of a compound word or numbers, and then dashes are usually distinguished in print by a longer length, but it doesn't, depending on the font, you sometimes can't tell. But dashes separate thoughts and ideas. And they're very particular about that in Braille. And then, you know, we also have a long dash in Braille. And that's because sometimes in print, there's actually a longer dash. And when that happens, usually we don't use that one unless there's two dashes used within a paragraph or a sentence, and one of them is considerably longer than the other, then we use the long dash. But otherwise, just the standard dash in Braille that you know. So this is where it gets interesting. Hyphens have a lot of rules around them. And if you primarily know that, you'll at least know, maybe I should look this up if you have a question. Hyphens, they terminate the effect of the capital word indicator. So self-advocacy, which is all capped, there's a hyphen in between it. And so we've got to repeat the capital indicator for advocacy. So hyphens, they terminate the effect of the capital word indicator. They do not terminate the effect of the capital passage indicator, which you see in the bottom one. So think of the capital passage indicator as a strong indicator. Or however, you know, whatever kind of rules you can, or whatever kind of ideas you can think of to make that memorable. And in numbers with punctuation, the numeric indicator works through intervening commas or decimal points, but it has to be started again after colons, hyphens, or dashes. So the first one down there is 8, would be like 8:30, 8:30. So with time, we repeat that with dates, or like the next one is an 800 number. Notice that we have repeated the numeric indicator after every hyphen. Back there, down there in the bottom left, we've got a date, 1850, hyphen 56. And the same thing with the next is 1910. And notice that we have a question mark after it, hyphen, and then 1917. So anytime there's a hyphen in a number, you're going to have to repeat the numeric indicator. Not going to spend a lot of time on these quotation marks, as it's not often that you will see two sets of quotation marks used in just the literature we're doing. Patrick, you might see this a bunch.
I do.
Yeah, so just know if you only have material that has one quotation mark in it, like the double one, you would use the top quotation, the opening one cell non-specific or the closing one cell non-specific. If you have material that has both a single quotation and the double, you're going to use both sets there and the apostrophe. What I want to warn you about, if you're transcribing material in Duxbury does not always distinguish between an apostrophe and a single closing quotation mark or opening. And so anytime I have that, now you can make changes on your computer setting to prevent that from happening, but most people don't make those changes. But you want to check anytime you've got a lot of material with apostrophes in it, you want to go through your material, the Braille, and make sure that Duxbury has transcribed it properly.
So what's the closing one cell non-specific mean?
Oh, that's just like if you just get material that has one type of quotation mark in it, it doesn't have two. So non-specific means it's whatever is there.
I'm just like confused because like a quotation mark opening or closing is the same character. And
Except we have, you have smart quotes now in Word,
yeah.
and that's where
Okay.
that's why we have to indicate that they are a little
the
bit.
curvature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good question, though. But again, make sure if you're doing apostrophes, take a look at that. And if you're doing a lot of material, bring your computer to me and I'll show you how to change that. So Duxbury will.
So the apostrophe issue with Duxbury is that it'll confuse it with the closing single quotation mark.
Yes.
Okay.
And any Bookshare files I get, it never gets it.
So it'll be like apostrophe S and it'll have, that .6 and then drop J.
And you never know which one it'll have either, whether it's the opening or the closing one. Yeah, any of the old Bookshare files are just horrid. We usually have to go through if we're gonna, if somebody needs one of those really fast, we usually have to do like a global find and replace on it. Here's some examples of that. And the second one shows you how we use the non-specific one and the single quotes. And notice too, at the very end of that second sentence, that the quotation mark is on the outside of the period and not on the inside. Okay, let's get out